Columbus, Georgia, this is your city council. Mayor Teresa Tomlinson. City Manager Isaiah Hughley. Pop Barnes, District 1. Glenn Davis, District 2. Bruce Huff, District 3. Evelyn Turner Pugh, Mayor Pro Tem and District 4. Mike Baker, District 5. Gary Allen, District 6. Mimi Woodson, District 7. Tom Buck, District 8. Judy Thomas, Post 9 at-large counselor. Skip Henderson, Post 10 at-large counselor. Tiny Washington, Clerk of Council. And City Attorney Clifton Fay. Columbus, Georgia, this is your city council.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the December 15th meeting of the Columbus City Council. This is our last meeting for 2015. It's been an incredible year. It's such an honor and privilege for all of us to serve you, and this evening we have a jam-packed agenda, so we're going to go ahead and get started. We always start off, as you know, with an invocation to get us in the right frame of mind, and tonight we have Reverend Dr. Shirley Redmond from St. Matthew Evangelical Lutheran Church, and I'm going to invite her to come to the podium, if she would please, and provide our invocation consistent with her faith tradition. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you. Yes. Let us pray. Almighty God, your glory shines throughout the world, and we give you thanks for all you provide. We lift before you all who serve and govern our home, Columbus, Georgia. Give all in authority the wisdom and strength and courage to know your will and to do your will for our community. Help us to recognize and act upon every opportunity for service to and for the people. Guide our diversity by your one Spirit, that everything we think, say, and do may be for the common good of our community, our nation, and our world. Give us grace to live together in unity and peace and truth. Through your Son, Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Reverend Redmond, thank you so very much. It's a pleasure to have you here. And please take back our greetings to your congregation, and hopefully we'll see you soon. So have a Merry Christmas. Thank you. Now we have a special treat. We have the St. Mary Rhodes Elementary School. They've come, some representatives from St. Mary's have come to help lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. We're going to ask them to come and assemble in front of the clerk's desk. And as they do, if you all would stand and prepare to join them in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Wow, really great job. Well, we want to get the opportunity to meet you, so tell us your name and what grade you're in.
My name is Jalea Saints. I'm in 5th grade, and I come from St. Mary's Magnet Academy. My name is Tiana Wilson. I'm in 5th grade, and I come from St. Mary's Magnet Academy.
My name is Jordan Price, and I came from St. Mary's Magnet Adam Academy.
My name is Nadeska Williams, and I'm in 1st grade, and I came from St. Mary's Magnet Academy.
Great.
My name is Nevaeh Spencer. I came from St. Mary's Academy. Magnet.
My name is Ajora Jones, and I come from St. Mary's Elementary, and I'm in kindergarten.
All right.
My name is Jacob Jones. St. Mary's Elementary. in kindergarten.
Oh, wonderful. Okay.
I'm Zayden Haynes, and I'm from St. Mary's School, Magnum Academy.
What grade are you in?
First grade.
Oh, fantastic. Good, good.
Hi, I'm Regina Banks, and I'm the supervisor for the after-school program.
Great. And one else?
Hi, I'm Lydia King, and I'm an activity leader for the after-school program.
Great. Well, thank you for being here. You all did a great, great job. Counselor Huff.
As counselors up here, we always like to stick our chest out. This is one of my schools, and I want to thank you all for being here. You did a great job. Thank you.
Let's give them another round of applause. Come back and help us again soon. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and jump in. We have actually, it looks like 2 public hearings. I'm going to turn it over to the city attorney to call for those.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. First item up is the Fort Benning Technology Park. It's a tax allocation district number 1. It's on for a hearing tonight. If the applicant will raise his hand, and we'll see if anybody else wants to be heard. All right. Any questions from council? Anybody in the audience want to be heard on the Fort Benning Tech Park tax allocation district? You do? Okay. It's like an auction. If you move your hand, you're going to have to speak. All right. Okay, any questions of council? All right. We conclude that hearing. Now, there is a resolution on the city manager's agenda regarding this item, and you can bring it up at this time or hold it.
We can hold it. That's fine. I mean, or do you want to bring it up? Whatever council's pleasure. Any objection to bringing it up now? Or do you want to have further discussion later? What's that? This is the Benning Tech Park resolution. Well, we can certainly bring it up now if you'd like.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, are we going to bring it up?
Yes, and then Councilor Davis has discussion, so we'll go ahead and see if we get a motion and a second, then we'll have discussion. Yes, sir. Go ahead. City Manager.
I've got a resolution to create a tax allocation district, district number 1. It's the Benning Technology Park, to designate the boundaries of the redevelopment area and tax allocation district, to establish a tax increment base and adopt a redevelopment plan for the area, to establish the intent to issue and sell tax allocation bonds as necessary to effectuate the redevelopment of the area. And so the purpose of the Redevelopment Powers Law, as most of you know, we've been discussing it, is to improve economic and social conditions within economically and socially depressed urban areas that contribute to or cause unemployment, limit the tax resources of local governing authorities while creating a greater demand for government services. Tax Allocation District 1, the Benning Technology Park, TAD, to include 51 tax parcels and 299 acres located within the boundaries of the Southeast Columbus redevelopment area. The Southeast Columbus redevelopment area has not been subject to growth and development through private enterprise and would not reasonably be anticipated to be developed without the approval of the redevelopment plan. The estimated tax allocation increment base is to be $2.3 million, subject to certification of the State of Georgia's Revenue Commissioner. The property taxes to be used for computing tax allocation increments for the Columbus, Georgia Consolidated Government shall include all of the M&O millage on real property within the TAD. Any property taxes levied to repay bonded indebtedness property taxes on personal property or motor vehicles, and ad valorem taxes collected from public utilities and railroad companies will be excluded from the tax allocation increment base, and that's in accordance with state law. The property proposed to be pledged for payment as payment or as security for payment of tax allocation bonds will include, and we've discussed this, will include the positive ad valorem tax allocation increments derived from real property within the TAD for the life of the district, which is approximately 25 years. And so, Madam Mayor and Council, we've had 2 public hearings on this as required by law. There's been some other public hearings held outside of this council chambers, and there's been some communications between parties. And so, having done all those things and in compliance with Georgia law, it's our recommendation at this time that the Fort Benning Technology Park TAD number 1 be adopted or approved by this council.
Okay. Let's see if we have a motion to put it on for acceptance. Is there a motion? Usually you have to have a motion or it dies.
Move a motion to accept.
Yeah, motion. Yeah, well, that's appropriate for, oh, so, will the public hearing close? So you want to reopen, we'll have to have a motion to reopen the public hearing. A motion to, okay, we've got a motion to approve on the table. How about a second for that? It's a second. All right, now we have discussion. Let's go to Councilor Davis with discussion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I did want to ask one question. Mr. City Manager, if you know or not, I wanted to ask, based on the matter of the ownership of the property now, once, I guess, development takes place, how is that going to transfer, or who will be the entity that will own the land at that point, or will own the buildings at that point?
Well, of course, this is private property, and I'm going to ask staff to assist me if I go wrong, but this is private property, and when they construct those, well, first of all, they are going to come to you. They've come to you with their project, and any buildings that are constructed on their property will be their property.
Well, Mr. City Manager, who currently owns the property?
As I understand it, the Flournoy is.
Oh, it's, I think
Okay.
the
So-
Development Authority.
Well, Development Authority.
That would be deemed nonprofit property, not private property.
Right.
So who would own the facility after it's created or constructed and developed?
If you would just state your name and address for the record.
My name is Jeremy Brewer. I'm the in-house counsel with Flournoy Development Company at 900 Brookstone Center Parkway, Columbus, Georgia. May it please the council, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. The land that represents the majority of the acreage in the TAD, I think what we've been referring to is the Benning Tech Park. It's not really clear who would own it at the time it's developed and then operated, but the plan is to currently have Flournoy Development Company or some affiliated entity, and there may be investors or lenders involved, but it would be managed by Flournoy Development Company in some capacity. We would eventually, an entity affiliated with Flournoy Development Company could potentially own it at some point. That's currently the plan, although it's, what structure that takes.
So it's, the way I understand it, and that's why I just want to be clear. So the development company basically is a development company and management company, but land's owned by the Development Authority.
Correct.
And at some point in time, it may be marketed for another entity to go private. Would that be before or after the building is completed? And I'm assuming if it's done in phases, would Phase A be marketed, Phase B be marketed, Phase C be marketed?
It could potentially be marketed in separate phases. It could potentially be all purchased at one time by the Flournoy entity. It will have to I would imagine, be transfer title to some private entity before you could take out, financing and
That's kind of where I was going.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I was going with it. So what is your timeline? What's your projected timeline for the first phase to be completed?
Well, we'd like to start marketing and continue marketing on it, as we go. As you know, there are plans for some infrastructure. There's a new interchange that is currently being planned and should commence shortly. To some extent, our ability to start will be contingent on that interchange coming about and giving us access to the property. But this would be a big boon to us to be able to go out and market it and continue to develop and do the best we can to bring it about.
And I'm willing, I think I said I was already willing to support an effort as to put another, in this case, because of, well, it's kind of complex, but the way that this is set up and being a nonprofit entity, that I'm willing to give it a chance to succeed. What I really would like to know, Mr. City Manager, in light of what I just asked, I somewhat believe that there's going to be a complexity when it comes to the financing of these requests, and there is a lot of, I guess there's a lot of information. I actually have, going through the redevelopment plan that was submitted to the city, it's very, there's a lot of detail in there. There's a lot of statistics and numbers, so forth. I think at some point in time that it would be in the best interest of the city to look into a third party, whether it's an accounting firm or a consulting firm, or even having a finance specialist on staff. If this is the direction that we're going as a city, I think they're going to be needed at some point in time to analyze and to go through all this detailed information. And I guess what I wanted to ask, in light of the conversation, is the city ready in this budget year to support that kind of expertise to work with in this area, supporting these requests?
Well, Councilor Davis, we do what we have to do, as in all cases. And we've had staff involved in this. We know that it's new to us, it's new to you, and but we will work our way through this, and we will call on the resources that we need to make sure that we protect the interests of the city.
And I don't know if that's a yes or a no.
Well,
but
I'm telling you, we will do what we've got to do, so it's a yes answer.
Right. So I can have the confidence tonight to know that the city is willing to support the necessary resources to support these requests and to back up these complex financial requests and matters that are going to be put before the city.
And my response to that is yes.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
We have Councilor Woodson.
I don't really have a question for you. I just have a question for staff. I thought we were going to vote on all these next year, or is it just the other ones that we're going to vote on next year?
Well, we are going to delay the river front district TADs, and there are 3 of them, until January, and we said we would bring them back the last meeting in January, and we said last meeting that we would have the public hearings on both, and we would have a resolution on my agenda for this Fort Benning Technology Park TAD, and the others we will not ask you for a vote on until sometime next year.
Okay, well, I apologize. I wasn't here. I was working.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I wasn't informed of this information. So when I saw it up for a vote, the first thing that was to my mind was to ask what happened.
Yeah.
Because I assumed that all of them were going to be voted next year.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with it. Because of the simple fact is all we're voting is on the outline. what it's going to be. Anything that goes on there, it's going to come back to us. May it be Flournoy, may it be W.C. Bradley, may it be Joe Blow. And we might not like the project, and we can say, sorry, no, it's all right. Or we can say yes. So I have no problems with the district. I just wanted to clarify that, because I was under the impression we weren't voting on anything until next year.
Okay. Councilor Thomas.
As I read the resolution that we are voting on tonight, it says that council adopts the attached redevelopment plan attached as Exhibit A. That's this document, is that correct? That is titled Draft October 2015?
That's it. Yes. Yes.
There's some very specific kinds of things in this document that I was under the impression would come back to council before we adopted anything. And I'm a little concerned that we are adopting this 53-page document without some of that clarity, if you will, clarification. It was my understanding that what we would be adopting this evening and through this resolution would only be the boundary lines of the redevelopment area and the boundary lines of the TAD, but nothing that included interest rates, bond life, specific items that might be developed on that property, that none of that would be voted on tonight. The only thing that I was under the impression we were going to vote on were the boundary lines. And that's not all that's in this document that is attached according to this resolution and made a part of whatever it is we do. That is of a big concern to me.
If I may address that, two things. First, I think there was a final version.
I'm sorry?
There was a final version of the redevelopment plan circulated. I just want to make sure you have it. I think it's more recent than October. And then...
Well, I don't have it.
Okay. Well, and then the second point was I wanted to introduce Ken Bleakley, who you've all heard present before with Bleakley Advisory Group. He can address the redevelopment plan and what would be,
Let me ask you this. Since what we were given in print was this October document that's labeled draft, and you say that the one I'm assuming is on ECAP is different than this?
I just know I saw a version that had been sort of finalized.
And let me just say, the deputy city manager is telling me that at the bottom of the document there's a PDF that of the current.
And are the concerns that I raised, are they not in this December document? Are they still there? Basically, it's the same document? Is that what I heard you say?
Yeah, it's just some typos.
Okay. Then basically, I have the same problem.
If I can address that, the state law requires that when you create a TAD, the vehicle, the document that is the governing document of the TAD is the redevelopment plan. So the resolution adopts a redevelopment plan for the area. So that document you have in front of you is consistent with about 50 other TAD documents in terms of its contents. Obviously, it's particular to this area. But those are the items that the state requires when you create a TAD, that you address each of those items in the formation of the district. It does not in any way obligate you to finance any of those projects, to approve any of those projects. They are strictly presented as a hypothetical, which the state requires that you do so that you can figure out how much potential the district has. But basically what you would be adopting tonight by resolution is creating the district, setting the boundaries, and saying we now, as the city of Columbus, have an operating tax allocation district. That is the principal thing you would be doing tonight if you adopted the plan.
So, Mr. Bleakley, are you saying that, for example, on page 50 of this document is a chart that is the base?
Yes.
And that's just a
exemplar?
Exemplar. Yeah. That's just an example? I mean,
no,
excuse me, let me tell you one thing. I want to vote for this, and I want to vote for it as quickly as we can so that you guys can get busy. But I also want to make sure that I have the kind of information that I need in order to do that. And what we were told was we were going to be voting on the boundaries. To me, this seems to be different than that. This seems to be much more encompassing. When you get down to the fact that the Columbus Consolidated Government District Number 1 Digest is $4,336,678,964.
Correct.
You know, I mean, that's pretty specific.
We're required to do that by state law. Once you set the boundary, there are two things you're doing. One is saying we want this area to be the tax allocation area. The second thing the state requires you to do is submit all of the real estate parcels that are in that area and what their current value is. So that valuation is what's called the base valuation. So it's as if we create a TAD district and it's these 4 blocks. They say, okay, what is the current value of the property in those 4 blocks? So we have all those properties you see listed on the next page are those parcels. And according to state law, we have to come up with what is the year-end value of those properties, and we have done that calculation. So if you adopted it tonight, the next step in the process would be that the tax commissioner would send a letter verifying that those are the values, the current values of property in the district. That's how all TADs function.
Okay. I guess the bottom line, let's just get to the bottom line. If we adopt this resolution tonight, I don't want somebody coming back to us in 6 months and saying to us, here's the project that we want to put on this technology park, and you've already adopted it. You've already done this. You did this last December, which unfortunately happens more often than not.
Under TAD policy, the only thing you're doing tonight, the only thing the city is doing at this point, there's 3 steps in this process. The first is to create the district, and that is the process you've been engaged in the last couple of months. You have 4 potential districts requesting to be created. The second part of the process is applicants apply to you for funding. You can either approve, disapprove, or modify those requests. The third is, after you've approved them, is figure out the financing that you're going to use, whether you do bonds, bank financing, or pay-as-you-go. At each step of the process, you will be involved in making that decision, and this plan does not prejudge. This plan says you can either do bonds, you can do bank loans, you can pay as you go. You can have other projects. It does not approve any projects for funding. It just says that this area is now eligible. It is a TAD. It is now a TAD, and if people are in that area and want to apply for funding, they can now come to the city and apply for funding, provided they follow the city's procedures. So that is all this document does. It sets up the district. And it does have a lot of detail, but that detail is required by the state to meet the requirements of the redevelopment powers law. Those are all laid out in the law. We have to go address those in every community. And if you haven't addressed those, you don't have a functioning TAD. You haven't met the legal test to create a TAD district. So those things that you see are specified in terms of the law of how to do that. And that's what we've been following. Was that helpful?
Sort of.
Okay.
We've got several other in queue, and we can always come back. Additional questions? Let's see. We've got Councilor Davis and then Councilor Baker.
Mr. Bleakley, I just look at this as part of the process and what you got to submit to the state, although I somewhat agree with my colleague that it's very complex. That's why I asked a question about, in the future, about additional resources to understand this. Now, what I would ask specifically would be, I saw a lot of maturity dates that made me a little nervous. Now, we are just committing tonight to outline the boundaries, and then you'll send the paperwork to be approved, the necessary paperwork to be approved and drawn up to the state. Now, we're not committing to any maturity dates. We're not.
Any projects.
All that
any
comes
money?
at a future date when the request and when you get all the other people involved in the financing aspect of it.
That's correct.
Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure. Thank you.
And you have, under this policy, you have the widest leeway financially. You have the ability to do bonds, you have the ability to do bank loans, you can do pay-as-you-go. You have great flexibility to decide how you want to do that. For illustrative purposes, we typically use the bond model because that's considered the most conservative approach. So if you go look at redevelopment plans all over the state, they typically have this kind of a forecast in there, but you're not held to that forecast. It's just illustrative.
All right. Thank you.
We have Councilor Baker.
Thank you. Councilor Thomas, and I concur with what you say, but I believe under our policies, after we do this, it still has to go to the school district and then come back, because their decision could have an impact on whether we decide to go forward, as far as I'm concerned. So I think you're right. There's still steps in the process, because the school board will have a material impact on whether it's a viable project, really. So we'll have to wait and see what they have to say about it as well.
Yeah, that's true. All right. Any further discussion? There's a motion and second. We've got Councilor Huff.
Yeah, just a quick question. Based on everything you just heard, we are in no way bound by anything in this document except for approval of district lines of the TAD?
The document basically says you are going to follow your TAD procedures that you've already adopted.
Mm-hmm.
It says that you are creating the district, that these are the parcels that would be in the district according to the tax base of the city. It'll last for up to 25 years. That's the term. You have the right to do financing. It meets the test in terms of, is it eligible as an area to qualify? And then it lays out policies and procedures that track what you've approved already as your TAD policy and procedure. So if you think about it, the analogy, to me, what redevelopment plans are in a TAD context is a business plan. It's really saying, here's how the city is going to operate this TAD district. It doesn't commit you to any one project, doesn't commit you to finance. But if somebody wanted to say, well, how would I go about applying, or how does this work? It's kind of a roadmap of how it potentially could work. It's not, it's a business plan much more than what I would call a redevelopment or master planning kind of document. It doesn't describe what buildings go in what corners, those kind of things.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Seeing none, can we do this electronically? Can you put that up there? Okay, let's do this electronically. I'll cue it to vote. And it's queued. Please record your votes electronically. All right, and it passes. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Fay, I think we have one more we're going to call, though it will not be voted on this evening, but I think it had already been published. Is that correct? Do you want to go ahead and call that?
That's correct. This is a continuation of a public hearing for the River District Redevelopment Plan, 6th Avenue, Liberty District, Uptown, 2nd Avenue, City Village, tax allocation districts 2, 3, and 4. I know Mr. Bishop is here tonight from Uptown. Anybody else in the audience want to be heard? These are going to be, again, notice for a hearing the 4th Tuesday in January, and along with a vote at that time by the council, if council is ready to vote.
Ms. Fay, do we have to say that this will be continued? Is there formal language we must do Does it have to be renoticed as a hearing after
It
the
is
first?
going to be renoticed by Mr. Jones in the paper for a hearing the fourth Tuesday in January.
Yeah, as I understand it, it was because it had already been noticed. Is that
Right.
correct, as a hearing? So we had to follow through with what had been noticed, and then council agreed at the last meeting that it would be continued after the first of the year. Councilor Barnes.
We need to continue, and we also need to slow this train down a bit. I'm willing to bet you, and I know the majority of you here for the natatorium, I'm willing to bet you that the majority of you sitting in this audience don't even know what the heck is even going on here with this TAD or anything about it. Am I lying to tell the truth? Yeah, really, and that's right. And we need to slow this procedure down, and I've said it before and I will say it again. The ones who make the decisions on how monies are spent are y'all right there. None of us sitting up here have to make decisions for any of you adults because all of you are grown. And I don't like the fact that we're moving as fast as we're going, and I'm having questions when I walk the street of people asking questions. You should know. And we need to have the time for public meetings so that the information can be given out to you, and the same information that we get, you can have. Because we're supposed to be responsive to what you want, not what we want. And so I'm saying it on record, and I'll say it, Mayor, we need to slow this down because it doesn't look good. Last time when we were together, half the councilors, all of us were asking questions.
Sure.
Even though we received goo gobs and stuff like this here. What do you think people, the public, when they see it on CCGG, they can't absorb that? Sure. If we cannot absorb it, how do we expect them? So I don't care what anyone wants. We need to slow it down so that the public can understand what's going on.
Thank you. And I think we will have that time. I think it will make everybody more comfortable pushing it into the new year. And once it's pushed into the new year, there's certainly no requirement it has to be approved or disapproved at any particular time. All right. Anything else? Any others that want to speak to the TAD, that want to ask questions related to this public hearing? Councilor Thomas.
Mayor, one of the things that we had talked about at the last meeting about the River District one was some of us have had a concern about the baseline for the tax, and Mr. Bleckley said that he could put together some language for us that would address that and deal with that. I would like to make the request that that be done as soon as possible. I know that, the holidays are upon us and things are going to be gone, but not to wait until the Friday before council meeting to get that to us, because I'd like to have the opportunity to take a look at it, to ask questions about it, to sort of, to do that. So if we could, and I don't know, Mr. Bleckley, what your timeline is, but I really would like to have it as soon as possible so that we can be sure to have the opportunity to take a look at it.
We totally agree. There's basically three technical approaches to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish, which is to make sure that through the reassessment process, none of that change in value would accrue to the TAD, so that if, let's say, reassessment occurred in the River District area and it went up, pick a number of 5%, that 5% wouldn't go to the TAD, it would go to the city. And we have an attorney working with us on looking at the best of those three alternatives. I would expect first week in January we'll be back to you with at least our recommendation for you to take a look at and your staff to look at. But there's several ways to do it, and we're just trying to make sure we're doing it in the kind of the most logical way to deal with that. It's basically a version, what's called a pilot payment, and there's a couple different ways to do that. And I don't have a definitive answer, but I think
Sure.
we'll have something for you by early January.
Well, if you don't have a definitive answer, I'm sure I certainly don't. So that's why I'm saying if you could get it to us as quickly as you can,
Absolutely.
after our staff has had the opportunity to take a look at it, it would be helpful, at least to me.
We anticipate getting it to the city right after the first of the year.
Great. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, and do get that to our legal counsel, too,
Yes.
because it's going to be very complex, I feel certain. Let's see, we have Councilor Huff.
Mr. Bleakley.
Yes.
Based on Councilor Thomas's request, You explained in our last meeting that there are certain laws and rules to follow for putting TADs together correctly. So if you would check for me the legal ramifications of the council's request for that additional increment to come to us that year.
Yes.
That's what they're looking at.
Yes.
I just want to see it in black and white.
Oh, yeah.
It is legal, because if it's not legal, it could come back on the city.
No, absolutely. There are 3 other cases of other cities in Georgia that have similar policies, not for a reassessment purpose, but they did a very similar thing, and we're trying to get the one that we think is the best fitting in terms of this reassessment process. There are many examples where you have this, what's called a pilot payment to the school districts, but this would be a payment to the consolidated government, and we're trying to make sure we have exactly the closest on-point example of that. But yes, we will absolutely have that, and we'll have the language to you what we've done so far is we have a math example to kind of show you how it would work so that I can understand it. And then we have an attorney drafting the specific language that we make sure we track the what's required by the Redevelopment Powers Law. So it has some very specific
I just want to make sure, according to Georgia code, we're
absolutely
legally doing it correctly.
We got to do that, so there's no question.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Councilor Davis.
Mr. Blakely, in some of the past conversations that we've had, I think I shared my concerns about amending the boundaries of the tax allocation district. As far as your clients go, we haven't had any more conversation on that. But where does your client stand on amending the boundaries to the tax allocation district? Primarily, what I'm talking about specifically is South Commons.
South Commons. I would have to talk to the client about that. I have not had any more discussion about that point, so I need to. Richard, do you want to come up and talk about it? But I haven't had any more discussion about that. But that's certainly something we can. At this point, the boundaries are totally open.
Yes, we can have discussions with the representatives from the Liberty 6th Avenue District. Do you have any specific area that you would like to have drawn in or drawn out?
I think just the South Commons area. It's city land, basically. And I know that, look, we've talked about you can always add future tax allocation areas, and it can be included later. I think at this point in time that it would make best sense to exclude that because it's city land and it doesn't really equate to the overall participation in the district.
So there's one area down there that's pretty critical, the way I would see it, but I take your direction, and that's the tank farms. If there's an opportunity in the future where the city gets possession of that and you'd like to go through some process to get it developed, I can almost guarantee you're going to need some help from a financial side to get somebody.
I don't think that's the property he's talking about.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah, I tell you what, since we've pushed this off, I think he's talking about South Commons, the baseball field is what I think he's talking about. But why don't, since we're kicking it to the next year and there's no timeline and there's no rush, sounds like y'all can get together and talk about all kinds of things.
I mean, for sure, that's where I was headed. If there's an area that needs to be drawn out, we just need to know where it is.
Yeah.
That's an easy process.
Well, very few times do you get a smile on your face up here, but that sounds good. That's good news. I'm just kidding. But no, I look forward to that. That's what I wanted to establish before we get further down the line. We had a long discussion last time and really didn't get a chance to talk about the general subject. Thank you, Mr. Bishop.
Thank you. All right. Anything else? Like I said, I think we're going to have a good long time to talk about other questions as they come up. So we do have that luxury now with kicking it to the next year. Mr. Fay, does that conclude the public hearings?
That concludes the public hearing on both tax allocation districts and the redevelopment plans. And I think Councilor Thomas might want to make a motion.
A motion? Okay, Councilor Thomas.
It doesn't have anything to do with the TAD stuff. I'm just looking at our audience.
I'm going to amend the agenda, pull them up to my agenda.
Great.
So that was my next point. There's no need for a motion. It's the mayor's agenda. All right. There are, as you all can see, folks here tonight for an item that's on the city manager's agenda, and there's a lot of young folks here, and I certainly want their first delving into the civic realm to be a positive one, and so we're going to move them up, amend the mayor's agenda to move them up at this time. So I'd already spoken with some of the parents in the crowd about that who have some of the smaller ones with them. Why don't we go ahead, Mr. City Manager, then, and pull this item up if you would.
We will, Madam Mayor and Council. I'm going to have Dr. James Worsley to come and do an overview of the aquatic center situation that we have, and of course, we're not asking for a vote or anything tonight. This is just an update.
Okay.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council, Mr. City Manager, and good evening to all of our guests that are here today as we speak more about the Columbus Aquatic Center. Thank you all so much for being here. We appreciate that. As the City Manager did say, this is an update to continue our conversation that we have been having over the last few months regarding the Columbus Aquatic Center. First, I want to start off by basically talking about how much we can afford. What does the budget look like currently for the Columbus Aquatic Center? And the target is on the screen, as you can see here. We're targeted at about $825,000. $825,800. And when you look at that, as we've stated before, $655,800 of that is operations. The $170,000 of that is utilities. Okay? So, again, as I talked that last talk with the mayor on Thursday night, and we had a public meeting this past Monday, and we met with stakeholders in the past as well, we talked about if you had a checking account at home and you need to pay a bill and you had a certain amount that you can only afford, what's in the checking account? So that's what we're looking at tonight. What can we literally afford with our checkbook tonight? Let's take a look at Company A, as we'll refer to Company A. If you will recall, we went through the bidding process, and one company stood out on top according to the committee that vetted the companies that applied for the RP process, and we refer to this company as Company A. And we'll do some comparisons with the Columbus Parks and Recreation Department. We'll walk you through 3 different models. We'll talk about the 89 hours, as we talked about in the past. We'll also talk about the 56 hours and, again, the 45 hours, so you can get a look at what that looks like. And I'll point out along the way some of the differences. Some of it should look familiar. We talked about it the last time we were here, but I did add some extra information that may make things a little bit more clear this time. Looking at the 89 hours in comparison, let's start there. And let's take a look at Company A. Looking at the left-hand column, costs going across the top, Parks and Recreation costs, and then the difference. The column that's been added to add some clarity to these particular slides is the last column, which is the difference. That column, this is the far right, allows you to be able to take a look at the difference between the Company A and Parks and Recreation. And then, of course, the qualitative information that goes down each column more in lines with what is being offered along with that particular money line item. Take, for example, Company A. Personnel, they have more upper-level management and personnel for, if you will, management personnel. So you're looking at a cost at $336,646. I'm just going to give you a comparison. I'm not going to go through each number because we've done that before, but I am going to give you some examples along the way. And then when you look at Columbus Parks and Recreation, we're looking at 3 management staff at the cost of $201,802, and then the difference between the two is $134,844. So that's the pattern that you will see as we move forward and look at the different line items moving forward. One of the bottom line is, and we talked about this the last time, is what does the total cost look like when you get down to the bottom. So Company A, for the 89 hours operations, that's what we're currently at. We are at 89 hours of operation for the Columbus Aquatic Center currently. And as you can see on this particular slide, we're looking at a little over $1.2 million, $1,267 million in terms of what it will cost to maintain the operation of the Columbus Aquatic Center under the leadership of the Company A. Projected revenue under Company A, they have projected that they would look to bring in $525,000 in terms of revenue. Parks and Recreation, as a comparison for 89 hours as we are currently operating, we are saying that it can be operated at $1,242,000 in terms of operations, and then a projected revenue of $250,000. And then again, the difference is on the side. I think that was one of the questions that we had last time. So that gives you an idea of what Model 89 looks like.
Councilor Huff.
Director Worsley.
Yes, sir.
In the Pro Shop concessions bracket,
yes, sir.
Is there any possibility of parents putting together teams like they do at the high schools to run the concessions at a swim meet?
In both models, Parks and Recreation Parks and Recreation model would maintain concessions. In the Company A would, of course, they would run turnkey operations for concessions. The Pro Shop is similar to what we've had. We have not had it in a very long time since we had the last company. It was not very successful. That's why we have alleviated out of our model and if Parks and Recreation were to operate.
So it will be available, it'll just be run by Parks and Rec?
We maintain some materials behind the counter. It's not currently used in the manner that it was anticipated because it was not successful. We currently have gym equipment in the room where we used to have the Pro Shop at, but we do maintain some items behind the counter that can be for purchase.
But what about concessions?
I mean, just concessions.
Concessions, yes. Concessions, we do still have that. Parks and Recreation, if it was our model, we would maintain concessions upstairs on the second level. If it was the Company A, they would turnkey and do that for us as well.
Okay. Thank you.
We have Councilor Allen.
Thank you, Mayor. Dr. Worsley, can you give me a breakdown on the projected revenue projections, $250,000 for the Parks and Rec and for the Project A company? What does that entail?
In terms of different swim lessons, programs that we would have, either one you're talking about, Company A or Parks and Recreation, you're talking about swim lessons, you're talking about swim meets, you're talking about membership services. Those are some of the revenue functions. Concessions, those are some of your things that you're looking at in terms of revenue.
How much do you know the amount that we took in this year?
Roughly $200,000. Approximately $200,000.
Now, are you saying you're going to generate revenue of that amount, or are you going to generate revenue over the cost of running? I mean, is this going to be net?
No, in terms of what we're presenting for 89 hours here? Which are you still focusing at the bottom here? We have 250.
Yes, sir. The way I read this is you're saying revenue projections $250,000. Is that above the cost of running the facility?
No, it is not. No, that is what the facility as it's currently in a deficit currently. We only generated about $200,000 in revenue.
Okay,
so in terms of the difference between where we are in revenue and the expenditures, we're off kilter by a long shot.
Okay, so the projection for Company A is $525,000, so the difference would be roughly $700,000 cost to the city to operate the natatorium.
Okay, make sure I understand you correctly. For Company A has given a proposal for.
Let me see if I can.
I'm just trying to clarify for all the listening public.
The overall.
When it says revenue projected, we're still operating at a loss.
That's correct.
Okay, I want everybody to understand that. It's costing the city over $700,000.
That's correct.
To continue to fulfill the 89-hour-a-week program.
That's right. Yes, sir.
Okay, I just want to make sure everybody is on the same page with that. This is not a net profit to the city.
No, it's not.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Let's take a look now at our 56-hour model, and very similar setup here. Looking at Company A, and I use the first column as an example again, personnel maintains the same at Company A in terms of the management staff. When looking at Parks and Recreation, the management the management staff decreases, less upper management staff, and we provide more frontline staff as you look at the second column, second row. That's why you're seeing the numbers, of course, decrease as the number of hours decrease as well in this scenario between the 89 and the 56 hours. Again, bottom line looking at here, we have $1,048,000 in terms of what Company A has agreed to run the facility for, and Parks and Recreation, $1,025,000. And you can also note the differences. Revenue projection in this scenario with the 56 hours for Company A, $343,000. Parks and Recreation revenue projection, $196,000. And to the point earlier, this is not over and above. This still runs as a deficit. 45 hours, very similar. In all scenarios, Company A has maintained the same level of staffing as you see here. However, again, less management is needed from a Parks and Recreation standpoint in terms of the facility. More is invested in frontline staff as you look at the graph here. And then, of course, you can see the differences as we go down, as you can look down the right-hand column, as I noted earlier. I think the bottom line here we're looking at, there's one difference that's been made here since the last time we spoke. The last time we spoke, Company A mentioned that they would be able to do it, operate the aquatic center at $820,000. Since that time, that number has changed to $825,000. The reason is because in the previous proposal, they did not include the general liability insurance that will be needed for this particular 45-hour model, and we went back to them to make sure that would be included in that as well. That's the difference. They are now including that in it, but the price is going up $5,000 there. Parks and Recreation is also $825,800, so there's a $800 difference there. The revenue projections for Company A, $219,500. Revenue projections for Parks and Recreation, $156,000. And again, here, this is not over and above. This runs at a deficit as well. Let's take a look at and set it in a different way, seeing it different than what we've already said, but maybe this screenshot also gives some clarity too as we compare the expense budget comparisons with the Company A and Parks and Recreation, and you can see it side by side, what 89 hours look like, what 56 hours look like, and what 45 hours look like. Company A, again, 1.26, Parks and Rec, 1,048,825 in terms of 45-hour. Those are all Company A, excuse me. Parks and Recreation on the second line going across, 1.24, 1,025,000, 825,800 are all Parks and Recreation comparison numbers as is related to the hourly week. And of course, at the bottom, you see the difference of what the cost would be in terms of Company A versus Parks and Recreation. First column, moving to the right, $25,046. Basically, is the difference between Company A and Parks and Recreation. Then 56 hours a week, $23,377. The difference between Parks and Recreation and the Company A. And then $800 difference in negative for Parks and Recreation. It would cost $800 more than Company A. Okay. That said, let's also take a look in a different way and look at the revenue projections. We talked about this.
Dr. Worsley, we have a question from Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, ma'am.
Good evening.
Good evening.
In the article that was in the newspaper, I was reading something about, in reference to reduction in hours, at what point would it do harm for the swim teams in Columbus?
At what point would it do harm with the swim team in Columbus? I think any reduction in hours would do harm to any
anything below 89.
Anyone that's currently there, because you're at a particular service. And I have a couple of slides away. We're going to talk a little bit more about what that might look like in terms of some of the hours, and I can address that a little bit more in detail then.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Let's see, we have Councilor Henderson with a question.
Thank you, Mayor. And I regret I've got to catch a flight, so I'm going to be leaving in a few minutes.
And before I leave, I just wanted to say that I want whoever ends up managing this facility, I want it done so that it is made available to the broadest spectrum of individuals. I'll get some flack for this, but I think I'm the only one on this council that when we built this thing, I didn't envision it as a big covered swimming pool. I envisioned it as a competition pool. And I envisioned it as something that's going to be a regional and maybe even a national draw for the city of Columbus that would have ancillary income coming in through heads and beds and people staying for tournaments. And I think that where we're headed here is the only way we're going to be able to try to help the folks maintain the level of the programs that they have already established is to try to come up with some kind of joint effort, just like much as it has been modeled at the CYSA and at the Corda. And I think there needs to be some kind of, if you want to call it a task force, or if you want to bring some folks in, because I'm not sure the parents here really understand the dramatic situation that we are in with regards to funding. You're doing an amazing job, but I don't think they realize that we're pulling people from other areas to try to cover this time, and they're working longer hours and they're not really getting any more money. So I just think the more we can talk to all the constituencies involved and try to look for opportunities to bridge some gaps with volunteerism, to identify some necessary times for them to be open. The only time the kids can practice, from what I understand, is either before school or in the evenings. Maybe we challenge them. All right, how can you help us hold down the operational cost and absorb some of the manpower issues or items that are involved in helping us with some kind of flat fee rental? Let them run it. I don't know. I don't have an answer. I got a lot of questions. I just want to tell you how much I appreciate what you've done since this thing has happened. You know, we've gotten away from the other contract, but I really think we're going to end up having to have some kind of ongoing dialogue to try to identify. We're looking for nickels and dimes now, just to try to keep it open enough so that you guys can maintain a program that allows these kids an opportunity for scholarships, for even if it, or maybe it's just club swimming when they get to the next level. It gives them an opportunity to do some things. We're also dealing with individuals that want to use the pool for therapeutic reasons. They want to come in and they want to swim, and you know, if you come in, there's 5 people swimming at 6 o'clock in the morning. Do you say that, well, that's not really impacting anybody? It's impacting those 5, and that may end up being a necessary evil that we end up inflicting on these folks. But I just think we ought to try to reach out and try to get some communication going. So. Anyway, that's my comments before I cut out.
And I know you do have to run, but I think that's just a wonderful idea. I mean, this proposal, whatever it may be, is going to hit our budget that we're going to start talking about as soon as we get back from the holidays. And I think it would be, we all would be very well advised to have an auditorium operational task force. Yes. You know, and yeah, and Councilor Henderson, yeah.
And I just wanted to make sure that everybody understands that the issue is actually broader than the auditorium. I don't have the budget in front of it. I think we spend about $3 million a year on providing swimming opportunities at the leisure pools throughout the community. We probably recoup maybe $1 million of that. So we got a $2 million expenditure for that. That does not take into account an auditorium. So there's a healthy investment in aquatics and recreation in this community. So it's bigger even than I think that what we're looking at just with an auditorium.
Well, why don't we take that as a referral and chat tomorrow about how we can pull together an operational task force that can come back after the first of the year and have some more, vetted proposal of whether or not there's partnerships we could take advantage of for some of the operational costs. Let's see, we have Councilor Davis.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I agree with my fellow colleague. I think that at the end of the day, whatever the name of this entity would be, it's become more and more evident to me in talking with we call them stakeholders, right? But I call it the swimming community. And granted, I think people need to remember where we've came from, where the history here, where we've come from, where we are today, and where we're going. The only reason the natatorium is in existence today because of you. I mean, really, it's because of you. I hear a lot of what I would term somewhat negative comments. I mean, there's some validity to some of the things that's said out in the community. When you look at it from a factual standpoint or a statistical or from a number standpoint, but at the end of the day, you have to look at the big picture. You've got direct cost, you've got indirect cost, and we never talk about the indirect side of this equation, which is revenue that's being generated out in the community that we're not even adding to these numbers that you could subtract to the operational cost. I can't give you that number right now, but I know it's significant. I know that one of the reasons we set out in establishing and constructing and developing and putting the nanotorium together is that, one, we said it's going to be a quality of life issue. Two, we said we have people in our community that's asking for it. It's needed. Like Councilor Henderson said, there was a clear sign at that point that swimming, diving, things of that nature, dealing with aquatics was an up-and-coming sport, very significant sport in the lives of not only senior citizens but adults and our children. You've got the indirect revenue that comes from people. I would imagine if I polled each and every one of you out here tonight that when you bring your child to swim, do you go to McDonald's, Chick-fil-A, Burger King? Do you do some of those things? I mean, Jimmy John's, there you go. But you know, it's creating commerce in our community that we're receiving indirect revenue in the form of sales tax. I know this event that's already scheduled. I know several hotels that have already booked teams. Believe it or not, teams have called and they've already booked. Well, that revenue is coming into the city. These events that the swim community is very active in putting on, you got to add that to the equation. So at the end of the day, when you really think about it, how much does it really take to operate? And then the whole aspect of marketing your community to the rest of the world, I think there's significant impact in there on what parents are looking for with their children, or the labor, the job community and the corporate community and what they're looking for and being able to provide to their employees. I think there's significant impact there. So, look, the facility's paid for. It's part of the operations now, and we're getting hung up so much on a cost to do business that we forget about some of the intangibles and some of the other things that I explained. But it's become more and more evident to me in the last few days. I've received a lot of emails. I've talked to a lot of people in detail, and the solution to making this work, and we've got a first-class facility, and really, when you think about it, there's no turning back. You know, our goal together would be to try to see this facility function at its greatest potential, and without the swim community be involved at some level, whether it's a task force, whether it's an advisory panel. I think about, Mayor, I think about the soccer complex with CYSA. Originally, how much money did they generate before the complex was built? They are very, very active in bringing tournaments, and that's a volunteer entity, but they're making it work. Corda, I can go down the line. The baseball parks, I can go down the line. They're very, very active. So why are we not doing that here in this case and getting the swim community involved and being part of this? And I don't think we're ever going to have a very successful sales and marketing plan without including the swim community in that equation. It's just not going to work because they live it, they breathe it. They're doing this every day. They know what they're doing. So I want to thank all those people who have sent me emails and people that I've talked with, and I'm smart enough to know that I don't know everything, but if you talk to folks, you somehow kind of find out what the issues are and how to work them. And I believe whatever we do, Mr. City Manager, the swim community needs to be a part of this, actively a part, whether it's from fundraising, sales, marketing, giving us input and feedback. There may be an opportunity. I've heard some people say that it's one heck of a deal over there that actually the city can look at, its membership fees and things like that. But I perceive this committee would be able to give good, valuable recommendations in what could do and at what capacity these measures can take place. So, that's something, you don't always read that in the paper. You don't hear about that in the paper, but it's a fact. I don't even know if we've really reached out to the Y, to CSU, to some of these other entities. There's so much potential here. We just got to make it work. And we're all in this together. We got an awesome facility, just a state-of-the-art facility, I'm convinced. And we need to find a way to help it reach its fullest potential. And it's got to take all of us to be, that's just the bottom line here. It's not just, we can't put it on Parks and Recs. They can't do it by themselves. There's no way. We got to do this together. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, Councilor Allen.
Thank you, Mayor. I too wanted to thank those that showed up tonight and all the emails and calls and discussions. It's been enlightening to me, very educational. I've been involved in Little League baseball and those kind of things, and I've learned a lot about swimming. So, but I wanted to say while we're here, take advantage of this opportunity of those here and those listening at home. We need your input, as Councilor Davis said, in being involved in this process going forward. If you would like to be involved, please call the mayor's office, call your counselor, call the city manager's office. There are many ways to get in touch with us, email, that kind of thing. We'll be able to keep track of it and encourage you to be there. You are the experts. You are where the rubber meets the road, and we need you to be a part of this to make it work. So thank you for being here. Thank you.
Great. All right. Let's see here. We've got a few more. We've got Councilor Barnes.
Well, I think Councilor Davis pretty much summed up what I was getting ready to say. It's funny how individuals can be on the same board, council, and here get two different impressions. When I sat here during our deliberations for the natatorium, and I was at, some of you might know, I was at a lot of the stakeholder meetings. Conceptually, I thought that the natatorium was going to be exactly not only for competition, but it'd be a venue that everyone could come to. And I've mentioned to some of my other counselors, the natatorium is, in my opinion, the only venue here in Columbus that has the widest demographic net thrown out in the community. Covers all ages, everyone from Green Island Hills to mothers that have with 7 children or 5 children can come and use it. It's used, it's utilized, and it's accessible to everyone. And I want to commend you, James, and your staff, because I know what a monumental task that you've had to have it functioning at the level it should be after the devastating calamity, the calamitous events of the previous ones that ran it. And I was in Buena Vista a couple of months ago. There was a gentleman that uses it every day. He lives here, but he works there. And I met him at a meeting. He just talked about what an amenity this is and spoke exactly like I said. I appreciate a lot of the emails, and I can remember about six years ago when we had trouble with the tennis courts. Quarter got involved. I can remember how Quarter said that they were going to volunteer and how they have really helped in the operation of the tennis courts. These individuals here are stakeholders, just as well as Quarter, just as well as any of the individuals on the golf courses. This venue here needs to function. I would hate to see the hours cut, because if you eliminate the morning hours, you're hurting a lot of the seniors that use the therapeutic pool. And in the afternoons, you've got the children. I've seen the little children there swimming, and I've seen a lot of the competition students here. So I'm hoping that we could come up with something where we utilize the knowledge and the experience of these individuals here to help us. Right now, we're all on the same sheet of music. I would hate for the hours to be cut. I would like to keep it open. We work for the people. Use the knowledge and experience that they have. We used it to get the natatorium. We didn't come up with the ideas. It was the stakeholders that told us exactly what we should do. So I'm glad that we are, and I would invite, as we say in the military, la-di-da-di-da-di, everybody, if whoever wants to get involved and give input into keeping the hours, and keeping that natatorium going. It warms my heart when I leave here sometime in the afternoon to go over there and see the kids. That's what it's all about. It's about the community and satisfying the community. So I know between all of us here, that we can crack this nut and come up with a solution. That's my take on it.
Thank you. Councilor Thomas.
Excuse me, I too received a lot of emails about this issue. And one of the things that stood out in almost every one of them, they said to us what a great job Parks and Rec has been doing. And I don't want anyone to get the idea that there's any conflict at all between the swim community and our Parks and Rec people. They were very complimentary of what, and to the point where they said, don't let those other people run this, let Parks and Rec run it. They've done a great job. And I wanted to be sure to say that to you, Dr. Worsley, because I think it's important for you and for your staff and for the general public to know that we have people who are capable of doing this and of running this facility. I would want to make a suggestion, Madam Mayor, that when this task force is put together, that we be sure that we include someone from the school district swim teams. Their issues are just a tad different, and we want to make sure that they are included. I think most, well, I'm not going to say that. I know 4 or 5, maybe 6, 7, or 8, all of the high schools in town have swim teams or participate, but be sure that they're there. I think that we can utilize some of the expertise of the Convention and Visitors Bureau. They do marketing. If we're not on their 52 things to do in Columbus, Georgia list, we ought to be on it. And I think that if they could be involved in this task force. Dr. Worsley, when did Parks and Rec take over the running of the facility? Do you recall?
April 28, 2015.
So
about 7 months ago.
So you ran the department ran the facility part of last fiscal year and all of this fiscal year. Is that so far? And when Councilor Allen asked you about the 200,000, what time frame is that from? Is that from last fiscal year, or is that overlap into
FY15, I'm told.
Okay, so
215,000 for FY15, so it would have been
previous. Okay, and if, well, whatever we do, whether it's an outside company or our terrific Parks and Rec department that runs this, when do we see that happening? I mean, you guys are running it now, but if we, you know.
And that's what we're here to find out as well. I don't have an answer to that. We're depending on.
So January the 15th is not your answer, right?
Yeah, we're depending on this body to make that selection, make that decision, because we have a pending RFP in place, and we are in limbo as a Parks and Recreation Department in interim. So my comments would be, I appreciate and I really think the task force is a great idea. I support it wholeheartedly. But I think right now we also need to focus on where do we go from here. Yes, the task force, but today we have budgetary concerns that need to be heard today. Task force, as you well know, as many committees, takes months to get off the ground and to be seasoned and to make action. We don't have that much time. We're focused now on just the bare bones. There's no program that's going on over there. We're trying to increase the revenue. I know we've all heard the old adage, it takes money to make money. and we need money so we can make some money revenue-wise in order to give the community what they're desiring.
Let me ask you this, Dr. Worsley. The $825,000.
Okay.
Remind me, does that include the 170 for utilities or not?
It does.
It does?
It does, yes.
Okay. And what does your budget look like at this point? I mean, how much of that $825,000 have you spent?
Well, that's a good question. Our budget currently, in terms of aquatics, the aquatic center, it does not have a separate budget. It is in the overall aquatics budget with outdoor pools as well. And that's one of the things in the budget process we're going to be looking to work with finance to move so that the aquatic center will get its own budget. And we're mixed with the outdoor pools currently. So a ballpark, we can make, I don't know if we can give you a ballpark number tonight.
Let me make sure that I understand what you said, Dr. Worsley. The aquatic center is not a line item in the
overall aquatics budget. Yes.
It's a line item in the overall budget.
But if you recall, the line item is for contracted services. So the contracted services line item is for $655,800. That's what we're paying USA Pools. There's a different line item for $170,000 to pay utilities.
Okay.
You add those together, gives us our budget of $825,000.
Okay. Okay.
So we really have to get, we are comfortable where we are, but it's just bare bones. We're paying to keep the lights on, we're paying our employees, but our point is, yes, we can continue to pay. Perhaps we wouldn't want to go into the end of the fiscal year, but I understand the decision may not be made until then. But keep in mind, the public is not getting the services that they deserve at this natatorium.
Well, and I heard what you said about the time it takes for a task force and so forth. It takes that amount of time if we let it take that amount of time. If we say to whomever, get it done, get a meeting, call a meeting, don't call a meeting for next February, call it for next week. You know, I mean, that kind of thing. And I don't want us to rush so that we're not looking at what needs to be looked at, but I also don't want us to let it languish. And again, I want to say to you and to your staff, I'm very, very proud of the work that you've done, and I know that it's been a difficult thing and that some of your folks have been juggling 3 or 4 or 5 different responsibilities, and we appreciate that, as well as I think as well as the people who use the Aquatic Center appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
City Manager, did you want to add
Well,
something?
I was just going to comment on your executive management staff. They're still paid out of their respective divisions where they work, but you deployed them over there.
That's correct.
At the Aquatic Center. So all of the real expenses are really not coming out of the Aquatic Center for those persons because they're still paid out of their respective department code category, if you will.
Yeah, but we're only talking about 3 people.
3 people?
Yeah, so you're really talking about the overhead costs is really all those part-time employees that we have over there. So you have a lot of money. Most of the money goes towards salaries, wages, if we will, as well as chemical and product.
And certainly we can start tomorrow talking about a task force, but we do know that we're upon the holidays and other people are busy with families, and so to really talk about getting any real work done with the task force would be early January 2016. But I will say that, as Dr. Worsley has pointed out, it's going to take some time to get going with a task force and how they may be able to work and assist, and we welcome that support and that help. But I think the dollars that we don't have, that issue is reality now, and we just got to figure out, and certainly we can share that with the task force, but we got to figure out now how we deal with it.
I think, Mr. City Manager, and I agree with you, the task force, but every issue has its moment. And this seems to have congealed in such a way that there's a lot of support here and a lot of interest. And so I think that it could move actually quite quickly as to some things that would certainly get us through to the end of the year. And then I also would envision that with this type of momentum and congealing of interests, that we would be able to brainstorm and put together some ideas for the fiscal year, which will be coming forward in March or so as a proposal in the recommended budget for council's consideration. So it sounds like you can make it through with the austere situation you currently have through the end of the year. Perhaps we can enhance that some through some immediate partnerships and look at some things that would enhance the budget for starting the fiscal year. And then, of course, we could keep the task force going for more, broader, long-term visioning. But it sounds like, I mean, this is just a hunch, but it sounds like there may be some things we could move on fairly quickly.
Well, and certainly I agree with that. I'm saying I don't know the numbers, and you don't have the numbers here tonight, but it sounds like the dollars that your year-to-date expenses and what's left is of an urgency to you.
Right. It is an urgency in terms of getting
and so I don't know where that, and we'll update council again on the second Tuesday in January.
Yeah.
And I think we should bring the financial data with us so that you know whether that's going to get us through the end of the fiscal year. And I think that's the question right now, and we don't have those numbers.
Yeah. Well, let's, and also we've got some more counselors here. The three of us can chat tomorrow with Pam and kick around some ideas and maybe get some of these numbers, so at least we can be thinking about it over the holidays and be that much further along. But it sounds like things are coming together. Let's see here. Councilor Huff.
To the parents that I received emails from for the last couple of days, I thank you. For the students, as you can tell, we all care about you up here, but it helps for us to see you. Your presence tonight has made it possible for us to consider moving at a faster pace. So would all the students and the swimmers please stand? While you're standing, I'd just like to say, I've seen some of your science projects and things that ideas that you come up with. Please sit with your parents and your fellow swimmers and think about what we've discussed tonight and see what ideas you come up with to be ready for the first meeting so that we'll be off and running and off to a good start. In the emails today, you can be seated. In the emails today, they mentioned that some are competing in high school at this level because they just enjoy it, and this will probably be the height of their career. Others are swimming, attempting to get scholarships and head off to college and swim in college and pay for college and enjoy college that way. Others mentioned to me today that some of you all have the potential of competing in the Olympics one day, and we don't want to do anything to hurt that dream, to destroy that dream. We want that all possible. If you all think you can make it to the Olympics, we want to make it possible, okay? And as you've heard here tonight, that Parks and Rec, they've been there the whole way, and they presented all the numbers tonight. So please know and understand that we go through a numbers issue. We love you, but once we get to a point of $800,000, we have to do some planning to try to figure out how to work out of it. So thank you for being here. Thank you for the council and us working together. And we'll all be one big happy family. As you have heard, we've done the same thing with soccer. We've done the same thing with tennis, Little League Baseball. I'm one of the Little League Baseball groupies with Councilor Allen and Councilor Davis and Councilor Henderson. So just thank you. I just want to say thank you and let you know. Continue to email us. If you have any ideas late night, we'll pick them up by early morning.